Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm surprised so many people are interested in IntelliJ. How many of you are actually using IntelliJ? Why did you come here? I mean, you know everything already. Okay. For how long have you been using IntelliJ? More than 5 years? More than 10 years? More than 20 years? Not too many? Yeah, for me, this year marks 20 years of using IntelliJ. So yeah, what I'm going to do today, since you're all users anyway, and you probably know a lot of stuff, using it every day, you know all the features. My task today is to show you like random set of interesting features that you probably even know already, and dive into some details of those features that you probably don't know. So I don't know what you don't know, so there's a lot of guessing. If you learn at least one thing after this session, that's not a time wasted, right? So we're gonna do a show of hands at the end. Like if you learned one thing, that's great. I do have an agenda, but it's very flexible. If someone really wants to know something and raises the hand and asks, and I can answer and show something, we can change the flow of the presentation. So I do have an intro, and which is normally the same, and then we can, mix and match whatever we want to talk about. First of all, I want to talk about the UI and the setup here. So light theme over dark theme. No, light theme, not too many. Dark theme, too many. Sorry, you gotta stick with this one. In fact, it's very easy to change, of course, going to this switch menu and choosing any of the themes, some of the embedded ones, like light with the dark header, the standard one, dark theme, and like high contrast. Well, if you want more contrast elements in your UI, dark purple, and of course you can install more. I prefer all light. Sorry for this. Whenever I press any shortcut, that's actually not the goal of this presentation, to teach you shortcuts. But whenever I press something, on the right corner, right there, on the bottom, there is a little pop-up that shows what I actually did. So if you really, really want to follow that, there is a pop-up for that as well. So the way my workbench looks like is a little bit customized. So first of all, it's a new UI. If you are not using new UI yet, probably it's time to switch. It's now the default. You can customize the toolbars, of course, for your preference, but they look somewhat different. In fact, when I'm using IntelliJ in my editing mode, I switch into distraction-free mode like this, so I don't have any toolbars on the side, any headers, and so on. And it's just, removing the side elements. But what I also have reconfigured for myself is not having tabs. So if you try to do tabs placement, one of those options right here. So by default, it's on the top, right? So whenever you open new files, they start accumulating on the top. What I figured, I don't really use them, so I decided to switch into this none mode and have just a single file open all the time. And when I need to navigate, Command E is the shortcut, or Ctrl E on the Windows, what satisfied 80% of my needs for navigation in the project, like reopening the files, for instance, right here, or navigating into any of the tool views, including the project, bookmarks, debug window, and so on. And of course, some of those you can memorize, like Command 1 opens the project window, you're all set. So this much for navigation. There are some other little tricks that I do for the projects that I have on the list that I open too often. I have my customized icons, so I could allocate those in the lists like immediately without reading the title. So like debugging with IntelliJ, for instance. You see there's a little bug there, or a spring, of course. And you can set those icons yourself by customizing the project. Either, you can customize the color, you can set the custom project icon, or even without these. So this menu has made it more accessible, but it was always possible just putting the icon.png into .idea folder. By the way, always possible. Most of the things that I'm showing today are not new. They existed there for 5, 10, 15 years. So that this might come as a surprise. Okay, so Workbench configuration. There's more options, of course, that you can do, but let's start writing code and see what else we can do. How do we start programming, or how do we start any application in Java? Can anyone tell? Shout it out. Main, of course, main. How do you do that in IntelliJ? PSVM, that talks the person who uses IntelliJ for more than 5 years, or more than 10 years maybe, because there is an alias for that. Main does the same. More intuitive for the newcomers, right? That's the little trick. Okay, so we're gonna read the file line by line and do something with the lines and see how IntelliJ helps us. So how do we read the line, or how do we read the file? Buffered reader, the old way. What's the hardest problem in computer science? Naming. IntelliJ helps with that. Then we have a few options how to assign this variable. Of course, like the intuition is to type new there, right? And then IntelliJ will most likely suggest the same type. Or we can also ask for type-aware completion, like Ctrl+Shift+E gives me the same, without actually typing the new and then asking for a type or starting typing the class name. Reading the file further, we need a file reader probably. Okay, here it did not suggest anything. File reader. Then we need probably a file with a path name, file.txt. Now we have completed the line, right? The semicolon is at the end. Everything is great, but it doesn't compile. How can we fix it? Anyone? Alt-Enter. So what will happen if I do Alt-Enter right now is I get a bunch of interesting suggestions, but not to fix the problem. To fix the problem, I need to jump to that underlined class. And for this, there are shortcuts, like F2 gets you to the next error, Shift F2 gets you to the previous error, Shift F2 gets us to the file reader, Alt-Enter, that's the place, like that's the shortcut that we want to hit now. Add exception to method signature, do some proper error handling. And once it's done, right, everything compiles, F2 actually will navigate through the warnings. So if you have intermixed warnings and errors, F2 will jump over the errors. But as soon as you get rid of all the errors, it will help you to jump over the warnings like this. Alt-Enter, remove the redundant file decoration. Okay, what else you can do, of course, like extract variables in this place. Like if you have nesting, then IntelliJ will figure it out and suggest which one you want to extract as a variable. We're gonna skip this one. So we were typing this sentence from left to right. What if we do it vice versa? Type the right hand of the sentence first, and then see what IntelliJ can do for us to complete it. So we're gonna read the lines from the file line by line into a collection, like into array list of strings. Now we have this type variable on the right, but that's the old Java, right? So it's like before Java 7. Doesn't feel great. If we extract a variable right now, Command Option V, it extracts the variable, and we have the left-hand side of the expression of the statement. You see there are a few options for naming, like the first one, string list, string array list, array list. Those are based on technical information that can be derived from the statement. Like if the type variable was string, then we can pluralize it and add s, put onto lowercase, and we get strings. That's kind of obvious transformation that IntelliJ does. It can check, okay, if it's a collection, then probably it's a list of strings. We can do something with that as well. But then there are a few options that are currently coming from the AI assistant. That's reasonably new feature in IntelliJ. So if you have a subscription for that, it will analyze the code and try to semantically derive the name for the variable. Sometimes really helpful, not in this context, not too much. I mean, strings is really great option. Another thing that you can do here, or you should pay attention to, whenever IntelliJ pops up something, there is always a hint for you. What else you can do anywhere? Like if you put Alt-Shift-O, you get some interesting pop-up, right? Let's try that. Shift-O. We get a pop-up with extra settings for this refactoring. And well, I can do like click or like click the other. But actually, whenever you have a situation like this, when you have a dialog or settings menu or anything else where you have to click, it means that most likely you can press Option key or Alt key, and you will see some underscores in those labels, which denote the individual keystrokes that you can press to click that option. So F or V, you see it changed the result of the extraction. If we unclick those, well, currently it's a technical issue that it converted back to array list instead of list, the original one, because type inference. So undoing type inference results in a concrete type, not in the interface, but I think it could be made smarter. So how can we fix that? Like now we are like at the variable name, but we have a type that doesn't satisfy our needs. We can actually go back always. If you have some action in IntelliJ that behaves one way, like F2, navigating to the next thing, then there is always undo action to that, like holding the Shift key and the same keystroke will get you one step back. So Shift tab, actually, sorry, Shift tab, no, nothing, okay, because of the pop-up. Shift tab gets me back, and then I can select whatever type I need, and it will start over. Done. Just let's check. Did anyone learn something already? Perfect, my job here is done. Anyways, let's proceed and see what else we can do. So we're gonna read line by line from the file. We need some buffer variable like string line. And we're gonna do that in loop while line, and we need to assign it. And then now you have this option again, like the way you write the code, right? What's your preference? Currently, I know that I'm using reader to read the line. Maybe I know the API for sure that there is a reader.readLine. This is what I want to get. And this is the best ever autocompletion that we have in IntelliJ implemented for Java, in my opinion, by the first letter. If I type the variable name, the first letter from the variable name and the first letter of the method that I'm going to use that I know exists, so r.r gets me the list, the filtered list of those methods. This is the feature I miss for Kotlin badly. I really hope they will implement it, but for Java, it's just so nice. Once you learn about it and start using it, you cannot live without it. And it really works nicely with, let's say, a few more. If I had a second reader, let's do the same, r.r, sorry, r.r. So you see, like it's all filtered out. So just perfect, exactly what I need. Let's delete this one. So we ended up here. It shouldn't be null. We complete the statement. Statement completion is also one of those shortcuts that bakes into your backbone and you don't forget it. Command Shift Enter, and you just start using it all the time for completing the statements. Now we know that we need to how to navigate to an error and fix it, like Shift F2 or F2, because it's the single error. It is gonna navigate through the file to the end and start over and reach the same line. Alt Enter. Now the interesting fact is we already have file not found exception in the signature, and read line throws an IO exception. So file not found exception becomes redundant, so it will actually remove that one and substitute it with the more generic one this time. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So IO exception only, no redundancy. Now we need to add the line into the list, right? We already know how to do that. s.add, strings.add, and line. And now, funnily, this is a funny place. We can complete the statement in 3 different ways here easily. So statement completion is like just you will reflexionally hit this shortcut once you learn it and start using it. So you can do statement completion. It works for statements and it works for blocks as well, as we have seen just a few moments ago. Now the other way, of course, using arrow and putting a semicolon, just easy, or just putting semicolon. It's gonna jump over the brace and put a semicolon there, because there's just no way, like, why would you have a semicolon before the brace anyway? Okay, what if I want to put only or use only non-empty lines in there? So I need an if statement, right? I can wrap, or I can use live templates again, as we have seen the usage of live templates in the beginning with main method. There is more. You can wrap with live templates as well. So Command Option T gets me the list of the live templates that are suitable for this need, and I can decide, okay, which one do I need? Do I need to put it into try-catch block or if statement? Let it be like this, and then I need to write the condition that the line is not empty. Line is okay. I have 2 options to select from. Both return Boolean, and if a method option returns Boolean from this list, I can complete the statement by hitting an exclamation mark, like this, and the exclamation mark will be put in the beginning of the statement of the predicate, and my cursor will end up in the place that I was, expecting it to be. Good. So we talked about live templates a little bit. There's a lot of them. In fact, you can get a full list of them by pressing a short key, like Command J, and gets you a full list there. Like, it's a lot. And you can filter by typing the description, like iterate over or elements. So you can do that. It will, once you select any of them, it will actually delete the text you just typed and expand the real template, like iterating over the array, for instance, or iterate over the collection, and so on. And you can create your custom templates, of course. But let's look at a few other use cases, not just iterating or printing something out like this, like maybe even a variable. What we can do, for instance, for me, for instance, it was always, like, not always, but pretty often I had to use the APIs that used collections and arrays, and then I had to convert arrays to collections and collections to arrays and so on. And there is a live template for that as well, to array. Then you select whatever you need, whatever type you need, and extract it into an array. Sorry. Yeah. into an array. Or I could have achieved the same result by using completion as well. So if I know that I'm going to need an array equals, I can ask for type aware completion once, and it's going to give me whatever options I have in this file first. Ctrl+Shift+space, and then if I do it the same thing again, sorry, need to be faster, do it twice, 1, 2. So it will actually scan all the variables that have methods, or all the types that have methods that can return the desired, type for me. In this case, array of strings. So apparently, toStrings has a method, toArray, that will result in the same statement that I created with live template. Okay, so what if we do iteration, and then maybe print something out? One of the ways to use live templates is via postfix completion as well. So string, if I type something and then put a dot in there, you get auto-completion for the methods, but if you scroll to the very bottom of this list, you will see what are the other options for completion that are actually postfix templates. And basically what you can do here is to call, let's say, shout, and it's going to expand into a real statement. You can do the same for, let's say, introducing a variable, hello, var, and expand it into a variable. So basically, it's a mix of refactoring and live template actions, in one. Good. So let's do shout string. That's it. So I basically have no errors here. Yes, there are warnings because I have some unused variables in this block. By the way, did you know about the blocks? So regions, those are custom regions that you can fold. Command dot, folds it. And if I needed to create some extra region, I can create one with surround with action, another region, and then I can fold this part separately, and it becomes a part of the file structure as well. So the structure pop-up will also have a section for that. You see. Or you can navigate those separately as well without the whole file structure. If you have only custom regions and you want to navigate only through custom regions, there is a menu for that as well. Okay, so let's remove that, make the file green. So the file is now green, no errors, no warnings. What else you can do? When in doubt, Alt-Enter. Just navigate somewhere and do Alt-Enter. It can do some stuff for you. Collapse loop with the stream API, for instance, or come here, convert it to collect. So there is a lot of interesting actions hidden behind like Alt-Enter, depending on the code element that you are hitting it on. Remove collect and convert it to list like this. Now, this doesn't make sense, right? Like declaration and assignment on a separate lines. Well, one option is to start doing like backspace and removing the text. The other one is to use the join lines action, Command-Shift-J, or no, sorry, Ctrl+Shift+J. It will actually merge the lines. You see, it just merged two statements correctly. Or another option, Alt-Enter, as usual, join declaration and assignment. And I think it would have even worked. Let's see, no. Like if I didn't have this, but let's say I have something in the middle, let's experiment a little bit. Test. Yeah, join declaration and assignment would work even if I don't have those lines, next to each other. Okay. So what I wanted to do now, do you have any questions? Yeah?
What would happen if you have two declarations in the a list of strings, then you have an if and an else, and then you click join. Will it like somehow understand this?
So if I have a declaration of, instead of print line statement right here, I would have the if statement, if something, and then else, and I don't have any use of strings in this place. Do you mean?
No, you do. You have two different declarations.
Then probably it would not as like, let's say, strings dot add x, no, something. I'm pretty sure it will not. Oh yeah, well, first of all, it will not compile. Well, even if it did, like new array list, let's experiment, that's a nice thing. Then you don't have the situation anymore, right? You just cannot get in this kind of situation. Your code will not work. Okay.
But what if you conditionally create one or another?
If I conditionally create what?
So you read from one file or another file. So you essentially assign it once, but conditionally. Right?
If true, then move the statement right here, else. And well, first of all, this one immediately says that it's a redundant branch, right? Can we join it?
Do Boolean parse of args, for example, then it will confuse it. Oh, you can do this as well. Yeah.
Okay, import class. Next int greater than 0. Let's try that. No, not possible. So data flow will probably, it's just too complicated, too many corner cases for this to be implemented. Okay, what if we try extracting something from here? So we have this join declaration. Obviously, we need some better resource handling in here, and probably it would make sense to extract it as a method, get strings, whatever. Could be private like this. I wish Java had this feature, expressions, but well, we cannot have all the nice things, and therefore we can just have the return in the method, right? Okay, let's keep it like this for now. Now we have this stream expression in the middle of the method, right? Streams came in Java 8, right? And when they came, people started writing them in one line because it's cool, like this. So they shift out of the screen. But imagine if we have a line like this, and let's add a few checks. For instance, the line is not empty. We are interested in the lines that are which length is greater than 3. We don't need this. And maybe the lines that start or don't start with A. Starts with A. Yeah, we don't need those. What else? We could rename those variables probably a little bit in a nicer way, like this. So it makes the line shorter slightly. And now I want to talk a little bit about the debugging facilities of IntelliJ. So when the streams came to be, people started writing those interesting expressions with multiple lambdas in the same line, and then they figured that putting a lambda or putting a breakpoint on a specific place is not possible. Then they started breaking the lines, which is actually good for readability anyway. But before that, the IDE engineers implemented this interesting feature that whenever you want to set a breakpoint on such a line, the IDE will detect that there is this expression. And like in the previous versions of IntelliJ until 2023, there was actually a pop-up for you to select which breakpoint you want to put. Now it puts a line breakpoint by default and tells you that it's possible to set expression breakpoints in those places, so you can enable them, for instance, like this. And if we debug it, debug, it takes a while to build because it's Gradle. Okay. Meanwhile, while it's building, any questions yet? Let's see. 18 seconds. How much can it do? Yeah, finally. Okay, so it hits the line first, and when we proceed, like let it go, F9, it will actually hit that expression, and then we can inspect the parts of the lambda expression. In fact, you can start debugging your stream just step by step, like by the individual expressions. By hitting F7, it will just show you what is happening, right? How the data is transforming. Is it reaching the final destination or not? It's nice, but it's cumbersome. Like you don't get a nice overview of what is actually happening with your data in that stream. Instead, there is a better way, I think. Like if we restart the debugger, we hit this breakpoint, we can ask the IDE to visualize the stream chain with this action, trace current stream chain, and it will parse the data. So it's actually eager, and it will show you how the data transforms over the stream chain like this. You can use the split mode, like the single operation, and see how like the values were filtered out, right? We didn't want to use empty lines at first. We were interested only in the values that are longer than 3 elements, and we filtered out the line that starts with A. And then finally we have a result. The objects, the way they are rendered here, rely on two-string implementation. Like for the strings, it's obvious it will show the string. For the primitive types, it will show the primitive type. There are dedicated renderers for collections, and for the objects, it relies on two-string, which might not be exactly what you want for debugging. So it's possible to create your own custom renderers for the objects and also for the collections. So currently, in this case, I have a custom renderer. But if I do that by default, like I can view it as a list by default, then it will show me just those elements, that are in the collection. I can create my custom ones in different ways, either in the IDE configuration or using the annotations. So it's flexible. What else we can do in the debugger? Breakpoints is an interesting feature. Let's jump into debugger examples. So we just learned about tracing the stream chain at the debugging breakpoint. And now method breakpoints, not too many people use them for historical reasons. They slow down the application so much it's hard to wait until the application actually hits the breakpoint. In IntelliJ, the method breakpoints are emulated, so they behave as normal breakpoints in the speed, but for you it seems like you're using a method breakpoint, so you're intercepting any invocation of that method. They can very useful when you're actually working with interfaces. So in this case, you see, probably it's not so visible on the screen, but I have a bool method that is colored, and the other one is grayed out because it's unused. Let's see what happens if I put the breakpoint first at the bool method. So there is a main method that invokes it. let's run the debugger like this, and I'm hitting the implementation of boo method, right? So it's not the breakpoint at the declaration of the method in the interface, but it's actually in the implementation. Okay, but this one is not very impressive because we can actually, if we know where it's used, we can set the breakpoint at the call site, run the debugger, do F7 as step into. The IDE will ask where do I want to go, either into print line method or boo, and when I hit that one, I will end up in the implementation. That's pretty easy. But what if I see that there's no usages of this foo method at all? Like if I hit find usages action, it tells me, hey, nothing is found, right? So let's set a breakpoint right there and run the debugger again. And it hits the implementation. So how come? How is it possible that our method is actually being run? Obviously, you can guess it's a reflection. And the IDE is actually pretty smart. It can guess, it can find the place if you use the method name as a constant. But, well, I tricked it this time. I used an expression to create. So the method name can be dynamic, right? So the IDE will not be able to find it. So interface breakpoints or method breakpoints are pretty useful in these cases. The other interesting thing that you can do with breakpoints is automating some stuff. Like, for instance, in this case, very simple example, you have get instance, right? It basically mimics the singleton. So it will instantiate only once. If I run this example, I can confirm that the instance is the same all the time. Okay, so it's the same reference, right? 10 times. What if I need to reinitialize or kind of redebug the instantiation logic of that object? I can set a breakpoint here, and when I start debugging it, I hit the breakpoint. If the instance is null, then it will be initialized, so I can let it run first. And then I hit it again, and the instance is not null anymore. What I can do is, obviously, I can call the expression evaluator and set the instance to null. And the instance is null. The if statement is going to evaluate to true, and I'm going to hit that line again, right? F8, so I'm going to hit that statement again. But it can be tedious to do that all the time. You can actually automate it without having to stop at that breakpoint all the times. That obviously could be useful if you cannot change the source code. If you are debugging a library or you're debugging some code that you don't want to change only for debugging. So what we can do here is, let's stop it. Whenever you select anything in the editor, you hold Shift and click on the gutter. It will create a breakpoint that looks a little bit different. So it has a different color. The color means that it's this checkbox here, suspend, is unchecked. So the breakpoint will not stop your application whenever it hits the breakpoint. And there is this evaluate and log text field as well. So it's the same as like evaluate expression dialog that you can just call on yourself. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to set the null value to the instance in that dialog or in that field. The breakpoint is not going to stop. And now I have a breakpoint that has some expression there that will be executed whenever program reaches it, but it will not stop. So if I now run this program in debug mode, it just runs, and we can see that it's every time a different instance. Cool, right? Nice. What else you can do with this breakpoints? Oh, by the way, there is a setting. If you have configured your breakpoint with a condition, for instance, like if you have a condition in there or you have an expression in there and you want to remove it, well, you might remove it by accident, right? And the IDE wants to prevent that for you. So are you sure? Are you removing it? Yes, this time I'm sure, but maybe next time I will not be sure. Complex workflows is also like an interesting use case for debugging. What is a complex workflow? You have some data coming into a method, and then this method takes the value, then it passes it onto some other step. The step 1 is calling step 2 is calling step 3 and step 4 and so on, by passing the same variable further and further in the program flow, and you end up in the very end, and then you figure it, okay, now I'm here, but how did I get here? I don't remember. I navigated so many invocations. One of the static analysis features that you can use in IntelliJ is analyze data flow to here or from here, depending where you want to go. In this place, we want to call this action, and it's going to scan the project how the ID was actually used and as a parameter through the whole invocation chain, and we can confirm that there is a branch in my code, right? There's two ways to reach the same place from the beginning. If we do it vice versa, we call data flow from here, and we can confirm the same. So there are 3 branches even, like this. You can achieve a similar thing or a similar result by calling the call hierarchy, but it only checks for the method invocations, how the methods are invoked, not how the ID or the value is propagated through the invocation chain. So in this example here, as you have seen, we have branches in the execution. And imagine I want to debug this very last method, but I'm only interested if it's called through step 4. So the classical way would be to put breakpoints everywhere on this invocation path and then click and unclick them if I'm interested, in reaching this method. But I can use the non-suspending breakpoint in this situation as well. So if I set 1, I set it as non-suspending one. The fact that the breakpoint hits will be recorded, and then I can use this fact as a condition for this breakpoint to disable it first and enable only when some other breakpoint hits. So it's kind of an automation of enabling and disabling the breakpoints. So now, if I run the debugger, it hits the breakpoint and disables it again, and I can confirm that it was invoked through step 4. Nice. And what else I can see in this place is that since the debugger knows the value of this variable and we have data flow analysis also built in, it can help me analyzing the current or the next statements in the method and gray out the branches that will not be executed. So this branch will never gonna happen, and this condition relates to true, so this part is going to be executed. I have a lot of other tips and tricks for you, but the time is kind of over, right? 1 minute left. Okay, one last thing. Probably something that you don't use every day, but you see it sometimes happening. So when we are working with data, let's say we get the data from somewhere and we transform it, we throw it somewhere else. You might have some instrumentation for the data or data handling. For instance, you need to query an extra data from the database, and then you might write some SQL in your Java code. Select all from dual. Do you know what's the result? The result is 1 if you are using Oracle database. Anyways, so currently it's a string. The IDE doesn't help us in any way immediately what's going on there. If I would use this string as a parameter to some JDBC API or any data framework, then the IDE will trigger language injection feature. I can trigger it manually as well. So if I hover over the string, let me zoom in a little bit, Alt Enter, inject language or reference. So it's gonna ask me which language is it. So I'm gonna say HSQLDB, and it's going to add an annotation, and it will now treat this string as the real SQL statement with all the completions and so on. And I can attach the data source to this file, like select the schema, and then I will be able to even run this statement right from my IDE. If I have any data, I would get any result here. So you can, do this language injection on your own, or usually it's triggered for you because you're using some APIs with the strings as parameters. Now I'm really over time. If you have any questions for me, come and ask. Otherwise, I just want to ask one question. Was it good? Nice. Please rate my talk. Thank you.